Nous sommes tous des réfugiés.
We are all refugees.
Réfugiés de quelque chose.
Refugees from something, somewhere.
Une colère.
Anger.
Un amour.
Love.
Une blessure.
A wound.
Nous sommes les réfugiés d'un manque qui s'est.
We are refugees of a lack.
C'est ce qui nous effraie chez celui
Enlightened by light. What refreshes us is somebody coming from elsewhere, waking up an old fear. We're not from here. We're all refugees.
Nous ne serons jamais d'ici.
We will never be from here.
Nous venons de la grande nuit.
We come from the big, soft, and cold night without exception.
Nous venons de la pluie.
We come from the rain,
De la montée des eaux.
from the rays of water.
Nous venons d'un silence
We
impossible.
come from an impossible silence between our father and our mother.
Un désir posé en cercle.
A desire as a circle between them.
Un mouvement dans le vide.
A motion in the emptiness.
Une profondeur gorgée de
A
maelstrom.
depth full of maelstrom.
Nous nous regardons comme si nous étions
We look
blancs
at
ou
each
noirs.
other as if we were whites or blacks with slanted eyes,
Blonds, nous comparons les distances.
blonde hair. We compare the disputes or the happy days of our
Nous
faces.
assassinons en pensée, en
We
simulant la
kill
ressemblance.
in our thoughts, simulating the resemblance.
Toutes les guerres,
All the wars,
toutes les barbaries,
all the barbaric events,
guerres,
all the wars, all the barbaric events are not enough to rid us of the one who comes from elsewhere, because we are already empty,
étrangement vides.
strangely empty.
Nous ne sommes personne.
We're nobody,
Nous sommes à peine celui que nous
we're
connaissons.
barely the one we know.
Il y a tellement d'infini.
There is so much
Il y
infinite.
a tellement d'infini.
There's so
derrière
much
celui
infinite
que nous
behind the
connaissons.
person we don't know.
Il y a tellement d'infini. dans
There's
nos
so
mains,
much infinite in our
dans
hands,
notre souffle.
in our breath.
Une fenêtre ouverte nous fait
An
peur.
open window scares us.
Nous sommes l'ombre qui a choisi la lumière pour
We
inventer
are
des
the
paroles.
shadow choosing the light to murmur the strangeness of our presence in front of the emptiness.
D'avant les étoiles,
We are from before the stars,
du néant,
the close to the negation, and we contribute to blemish the darkness.
seulement
A language is not foreign, it's just
L'âme,
strange.
c'est toutes les langues.
The soul is any
Et
language,
le désir de la
and
bouche,
the desire of the mouth to
la lumière
contain
brûlante.
the burning light of the emptiness.
Nous sommes tous les réfugiés
We're all the
autorisés
refugees
dans
of
notre
an horizon carried by the seagulls, by the sea crushing on our steps. We are all refugees running, looking for something, the return.
Nous sommes tous
We're all
des réfugiés,
refugees
une présence qui a besoin
of
d'un
a
développement,
presence
d'épreuves
needing
fréquentes, toucher,
something hard to what how tiring is love, how tiring is
le temps qui passe.
the pain, how tiring is passing time.
L'ailleurs est un pays qui nous a mis au monde.
Elsewhere is a country that gave us birth. As long as we don't know anything about it, we fell from an elsewhere. We only have nostalgia about a faraway memory, a shadow between our look and the picture. We're all refugees, memories running towards silence, peace.
Dominique Sampiero, nous sommes tous des réfugiés. Dominique, à l'instant, nous a proposé un autre regard sur le réfugié, les réfugiés. Et Dieu sait si c'est d'actualité dans notre région, mais c'est aussi d'actualité dans notre rue, dans notre entreprise, un peu partout, là où nous vivons. Un autre regard, être à contretemps, c'est ce que nous allons vous proposer au cours de cette plénière du World Forum 2024, 18e édition. Et je suis là devant 10 trophées, 3 et 3, 6 et 4, 10. Ce sont les trophées de l'économie responsable, 30e édition là pour le coup, des trophées de l'économie responsable. Et à la fin de notre séance, nous aurons le plaisir de les remettre aux lauréats, aux entreprises lauréates de cette année, mais surtout aux communautés de femmes, d'hommes, des parties prenantes de ces entreprises. Alors au premier rang, où sont-ils? Il y a un président d'honneur du World Forum. Et Philippe Vasseur, où est-il? Il est là, fondateur du World Forum. Salut Philippe. On est ravis que vous soyez là. Alors vous êtes désormais deux, hein, parce que Jean-Pierre Le Tartre t'a rejoint il y a quelques semaines. Jean-Pierre a rencontré pour nous, il y a 2-3 jours, Xavier Bertrand, le président de cette région, qui n'a pas pu être avec nous aujourd'hui, mais tu l'expliques d'ailleurs hein, dans ce qu'on va voir. Et il l'a rencontré pour échanger avec lui sur les contretemps qu'il voit dans l'exercice de son mandat, les contretemps qu'il observe également autour de lui sur notre territoire. Et plus tard, il posera aussi une question à l'un de nos grands invités, qui est là, Luc Raymond. Bienvenue à vous, Monsieur le Président. On écoute tout de suite cet échange inédit entre Jean-Pierre Le Tartre et Xavier Bertrand. Regardez.
Bon, cher Xavier, cher président de région, merci d'être là. Tu ne peux pas être à notre World Forum 18e édition parce que tu es au Japon pour défendre les intérêts des Hauts-de-France. Et donc, on a prévu de faire un interview tous les deux sur les sujets liés au fond à cette question majeure qui est est-ce que le monde va s'adapter aux défis auxquels on est confronté, qu'ils soient environnementaux ou sociétaux. Et en fait, tu sais que cette 18e édition s'appelle le contretemps. Et pourquoi le contretemps? Parce que, au fond, aujourd'hui, on sent plus, pour la première fois physiquement, les conséquences du réchauffement climatique. Notre région a été touchée par des inondations extrêmement fortes. Et on sent aussi, avec les nombreux défis, que les entreprises, les organisations, l'État, les collectivités locales peuvent se poser des questions sur leur rythme d'investissement pour transformer leur modèle. Et donc, on est dans une période de contretemps. Et le contretemps en musique, c'est frapper une note forte dans un temps faible. On est dans un temps faible et la question aujourd'hui, ça va être de frapper une note forte. Et c'est l'objet de notre entretien d'aujourd'hui. Donc, il y a de nombreuses années maintenant, plus d'une dizaine d'années, tu as lancé un programme qui s'appelait Rêve 3, en avance sur tous les autres. Aujourd'hui, tu dirais, est-ce que ce programme est dans le temps ou est-ce qu'il est à contre-temps?
S'il était à contre-temps, c'est parce qu'on avait un temps d'avance. Et je vais rendre à César ce qui appartient à la fois à Daniel Percheron, mon prédécesseur à la tête de la région, et à Philippe Vasseur, qui était à la tête de la Chambre régionale de commerce et d'industrie. Et à l'époque, je me souviens, je suis élu à Saint-Quentin, c'est pas la même région, et je viens assister à la présentation de Rêve 3 en me disant comment la Picardie, comment notamment mon territoire du Saint-Quentinois, pourrait en bénéficier. Parce que je me dis, ils ont pris un temps d'avance. Ils sont en train de marier, à l'époque, écologie et économie. C'est-à-dire cette transformation climatique, comment ils réussissent à la marier avec le développement éco. Pas de décroissance, comment on marie les deux? On marche bien sur deux jambes, écologie, économie. Et à l'époque, ce temps d'avance nous a été profitable, et pas seulement en termes d'image, comme certains l'ont pensé. Donc quand je suis arrivé à la tête de la région, cette bonne idée, je n'ai pas voulu la mettre de côté parce que c'était mes prédécesseurs, cette bonne idée, on a décidé de la prendre à bras-le-corps, et justement de la faire rentrer concrètement dans l'action régionale, dans la réalité régionale. Et je vais revisiter un certain nombre d'aspects de la politique régionale. C'est parce qu'il y avait Rêve 3 que j'ai eu le souci de marier transition climatique avec la logistique. C'est la logique, la genèse du canal Seine-Nord-Europe qui aujourd'hui a commencé à être creusé, qui va transformer complètement cette logistique entre le bassin de la Seine, Paris, et justement le nord de la France et les ports d'Europe. La transformation climatique, c'est aussi avec l'énergie. Depuis 2016, on s'est battu, la région était candidate, pour attirer les EPR. 2 EPR, il n'y a pas que la Normandie, il y a aussi les Hauts-de-France, avec des travaux de terrassement qui vont commencer dès 26. Donc ce n'est pas dans 50 ans, c'est maintenant. La transformation climatique, c'est toujours la logique Rêve 3 avec l'industrie automobile, d'être les premiers à mettre en place, à décider, à construire la vallée de la batterie. Et puis la transformation climatique est une autre partie de l'économie circulaire. Il n'y aurait pas eu Rêve 3, je n'aurais certainement pas eu cette volonté de projeter la région. Et donc ce contretemps, j'en reviens à ce que tu me disais, c'était l'idée de prendre un temps d'avance, et ça reste clairement la marque de fabrique que je veux continuer à garder pour les Hauts-de-France. Un temps d'avance.
Justement, ce temps d'avance, aujourd'hui, avec les enjeux qui se resserrent, hein, quelquefois on a l'impression qu'on ne va jamais atteindre les objectifs, par exemple, de l'accord de Paris. Et d'ailleurs, ça crée quelquefois quelques déceptions ou un manque de volonté, parce qu'on se dit, bon, de toute façon, si on n'arrive pas, c'est peut-être pas la peine. Toi, comment tu dirais, comment on peut accélérer le rythme, déjà au niveau de la région, qu'est-ce que tu ferais pour frapper plus fort encore?
Alors, c'est là les limites de l'action régionale, parce que bon, il y a l'action régionale et puis il y a l'action nationale et l'action européenne. Je pense que les régions ont aussi un véritable rôle à jouer, je le dis, je l'assume, de lobbyiste, c'est-à-dire de pousser pour, de défendre justement les intérêts de ce mariage entre les deux aspects. C'est vrai qu'aujourd'hui, en ce qui nous concerne, c'est de continuer à accélérer sur Rêve 3, c'est rentrer dans la vie économique, c'est rentrer aussi pour une bonne partie dans la vie sociale. Mais il faut en permanence se poser la question comment on fait mieux. Et puis c'est d'interpeller les pouvoirs publics. Les accords de Paris, on sait bien qu'aujourd'hui, dans le concert des grandes nations, les États-Unis d'un côté, M. Trump, la Chine de l'autre, l'Inde, on se dit très clairement, est-ce que c'est juste une région qui peut peser? Non. Est-ce que c'est juste la France? Non. L'Europe? Ah, bien sûr que oui. Sauf que là, il faut quand même qu'on mette de côté les égoïsmes nationaux et le fait que tout le monde veut l'Europe, mais que dès qu'il y a des intérêts économiques, regardez nos amis allemands, pour vendre des Porsche et des Audi aux États-Unis ou en Chine, ils sont prêts à tout sacrifier. Regardez comment ça s'est passé sur les panneaux solaires, regardez comment ça se passe sur la question de l'agriculture. Sur toutes ces questions-là, à un moment donné, l'union fait la force, oui, mais c'est une union nationale et c'est une union européenne.
Je voulais revenir une petite seconde sur ce qui s'est passé quand même dans les Hauts-de-France avec les inondations. On voit bien qu'aujourd'hui, on est confronté physiquement à ces dérèglements climatiques. Est-ce que tu penses qu'on fait assez dans la prévention? Parce qu'on peut empêcher la détérioration du climat, mais il y a aussi à se protéger aujourd'hui. Est-ce que tu penses que sur cette question-là, en termes de protection, il y a des choses à faire? Est-ce qu'il n'y a pas des choses à faire aussi publiques-privées, d'ailleurs, dans ce domaine?
Bien sûr. Alors, bon, il s'avère que je suis très attaché à la prévention sous toutes ses formes. Je l'ai fait dans mes différentes fonctions, dans mes différents mandats locaux, nationaux. Peut-être est-ce parce que pendant plus d'une dizaine d'années, j'ai été assureur. Et effectivement, comment on peut anticiper les risques, pas seulement les indemniser. Et je pense que quand on dit gouverner, c'est prévoir, ça veut dire anticiper au maximum. Et dans la question des inondations, il est évident qu'on a besoin aujourd'hui de voir comment on évite que de tels drames ne se renouvellent. Et comment on mobilise public-privé, notamment les assureurs. Vous savez que j'ai la dent dure par rapport à la profession. Certains me disent qu'avec tout ce que je dis, tout ce que je fais, je ne risque pas de retourner dans le secteur, c'est certainement vrai. Mais c'est parce que je les connais bien et que je sais quel est leur rôle, qui est aussi un rôle quasi sociétal. Ce n'est pas seulement d'encaisser des primes et d'indemniser, qu'on peut faire mieux. Est-ce qu'il ne serait pas intelligent pour les assureurs d'intervenir beaucoup plus massivement sur la prévention plutôt que de seulement indemniser? Pourquoi ce serait uniquement les collectivités locales et l'État? C'est là où on a un véritable rôle à jouer. Il y a un rôle également de mobilisation, d'anticipation personnelle, citoyenne, mais collectivement, on peut faire mieux. Et puis, il y a aussi les rapports du GIEC. Les rapports du GIEC, ce n'est pas seulement international, ce n'est pas seulement les conséquences nationales, mais on va engager un nouveau travail dans la région en fonction des scénarios. Qu'est-ce que ça va changer pour nous? La gestion, le recul ou pas du trait de côte, la gestion des inondations, l'eau, le trop-plein par moment, mais aussi la pénurie. Et toutes ces questions-là, j'ai envie justement de les connecter à l'avenir de la région. Et comme je l'ai dit tout à l'heure, je pense que le rôle d'un responsable politique, c'est de penser plus loin que son mandat et de voir comment on aura réussi à accompagner cette transformation. C'est d'ailleurs l'enjeu de la réflexion du World Forum depuis maintenant 18 ans. J'ai exactement la même logique, c'est-à-dire de dépasser le cadre purement politique, le cadre de nos cycles électoraux, pour voir notamment en 2030 comment la région se sera transformée.
Alors, deux petites questions encore. Une première, au fond, plutôt de te demander quel message tu as envie de donner à toutes les personnes qui assistent au World Forum. Hein. On a plus de 1000 inscrits comme chaque année. Un World Forum fondé justement sur des questions du contretemps hein, et surtout contre nos idées reçues. Donc, quel message tu voudrais dire aux chefs d'entreprise et pas que, qui sont là dans cette salle?
Être innovant,
ouais.
Continuer à innover, sortir des sentiers battus, raisonner en dehors de la boîte, out of the box.
Ouais.
Je pense que c'est ça, je pense que c'est la clé. Il ne faut pas avoir peur de prendre des initiatives, d'aller de l'avant. Alors, ça peut être à contre-temps par rapport aux contraintes budgétaires, aux contraintes financières, mais je pense qu'il faut toujours être dans cette logique-là et essayer d'avoir un temps d'avance. C'est une région, les Hauts-de-France, qui a souvent eu un temps d'avance à différentes époques, que ce soit même au 19e siècle, au 20e siècle.
Social,
et je pense que c'est la seule façon, et tu le sais bien, toi qui es un peu de ces représentants, de ces porte-paroles, de ces figures, de ces patrons qui savent qu'ils ont une responsabilité sociale, sociétale, savent pertinemment que la dimension économique est clé, mais au service de quoi? C'est quand on a cette conscience-là, cette conscience collective, d'innover. La question du temps d'avance, pour moi, elle est clé. Je pense que nous aurons réussi, certainement sur une quinzaine d'années, à changer de regard, à changer d'image. Mais moi, ce qui m'intéresse le plus, c'est que dans les années qui viennent, un jeune puisse se dire « Les Hauts-de-France, c'est ma région, j'ai l'opportunité d'y vivre, alors je saisis cette opportunité. » Et qu'un jeune qui soit en dehors de cette région se dise « Il faut regarder les Hauts-de-France, il faut peut-être y aller. » C'est ça l'enjeu. Et pour ça, il faut un temps d'avance.
Jean-Pierre, tu viens? Voilà. Installe-toi là, j'ai préparé un plaid.
I've got a plaid. Now, you telling me that there are 1,000 subscribers, but was it last week? Yes, it was last week. Xavier Bertrand, president of the Hauts-de-France region, big partner of the World Forum. We're talking about offbeat. That was in February, March. I mean, with Adrien, we thought about it, and this theme, this keyword, came out strong. I mean, the necessity of being offbeat, but there are positive offbeats and negative ones, and we're going to deal with that later. The loyal amongst loyals is Luc Rémond, because being CEO of EDF, he was at the head of Schneider France and was always present at the World Forum in Dunkirk on the energies of the future, the plenary sessions of the World Forum, and we're delighted to welcome him. And I'm going to leave you to chat for about 15 minutes, the both of you. I think that you're good at this exercise. I mean, Luc Rémond. Right. Good evening, Luc. Good evening, Jean-Pierre. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your welcome. Thank you for being here. As Jean-Michel said, I mean, you were here at the World Forum 10 years ago, being invited by Philippe, and at the time you weren't the chairman of EDF, you were the chairman of Schneider France, which is a loyal partner of the Alliance network and of the World Forum, and I want to thank them for that. And today you're chairing the first electricity producer, a major player in renewable energy, so you are in the core of the climate and energetic challenge. So you probably the person who's probably the most important one in a conference such as this one, in an event such as the World Forum is. I wanted to ask you as a first question about the offbeat element. When you see today that, on the one hand, we feel physically the consequences of the climate change, the flooding in the Hauts-de-France and elsewhere, as a reminder. When we see that some companies doubt and delay investments, this time with Arcelor, 1.8 billion investment on decarbonation, which is delayed, that's a very strong signal. And when we see the different crises that company CEO have got to shoulder. I mean, they think, oh, well, I'll see, I'll talk about it later. Are we at a time when the determination for the change that we fell surging up and up and up in the different forums to increasing the awareness and then sharing experiences? I mean, are we now stepping back in this effort for transformation? Well, good evening, everyone. I'm delighted to be back in the World Forum. I greet Jean-Pierre Nacry, Philippe Vasseur, and Didier Leroy, who was a big testifier. Some people can't very much, and I'm very keen on this World Forum, asking the right question, maybe offbeat, because 10 years ago, I mean, we were ahead on the public thoughts at national level and international level. The question asked then was good, but we've gone from thinking to realizing things. So there are times when you have to go through uncertainties. The wind blows from a different destination, or you might be facing strange. When I see the ground covered by this region over a decade on this implementation of RED 3, of the third industrial revolution, as we called it, we see tangible elements which are done or which are being done. So it's not because it's my commitment and my determination as an electrician specialist, but even if we have a moment when things fluctuate. But 4 years ago, I wasn't in control of Schneider France, but I had emerging countries coming, and my figures dropped by 96%. But have we stopped saying no, it's the end? That's because of the COVID. No, it's not the end. I mean, we can manage fluctuations. So I'm hoping that the ArcelorMittal decision is only temporary because of their end market. It's fair for them to be uncertain about their commercial situation. There are crises in Europe. There are, between the three major plagues, uncertainties too. We should ask ourselves questions about that. Does that mean that we're going to be going back, thinking the target we had was not the right one? I don't think so, because we have all the indicators telling us that the target is the right one. The climate phenomenon, we're dead on it. I mean, we've just gone through 18 months of the greatest drought in Western Europe in the last 40 years, and 18 months of the greatest rainfall in Western Europe in the last 40 years. So these phenomena are deep ones, and we've got to deal with them, because other than that, I mean, we can always think, oh, it's too tough. I mean, we're not going to do it. Well, the meeting in a couple of years from now is going to be much tougher. So we've got to think pragmatically without doing things which are nonsensical. We've got to follow this path because it is the path of our competitiveness, and it's a way we're going to be able to develop our economy by being one step ahead of others. Saying drill, baby, drill, for instance. So for EDF, it's not just a matter of slowing down investment. EPR in Dunkirk will see the light in the due time. For EDF, the first condition for success is to convince all their customers that electricity is available and it's got to be used. Because we're post-crisis period. I mean, we're getting out of it. I mean, we've got all the production we needed. We brought the prices back. There's still a discussion going on with some industrialists, but for the main part, we will never have the price that we had before the COVID. The prices before the COVID were set by the administration without any attention to the cost, etc. If we go back to that, I mean, we'll close the door, and we are in a post-crisis environment. What counts for EDF is that we make our customers confident in the fact that electricity is available. Our country exports twice the Belgian consumption. I quote Belgium because we're going to export 90 terawatts per hour. That's 15 nuclear slices. That's important. Electricity is there, and it's almost neutral carbon in France. So we can trust electricity to pay on the zero carbon situation if that's materializing itself by choices. We'll do that. Invest in production, invest on the network that will support this change in usages. I mean, we're doing that now, but to support the pace at which we've started, we shouldn't be offbeat. We can be offbeat a little bit, but if we've got 3 offbeats, we're going to be too far. 1 offbeat, that means that we're going to have more electricity than we need. 3 offbeats, that means that we're going to put the electrical system under stress. So it's this speed of growth that we've got to caliber by supporting the use of electricity with mobility, the buildings. And our ambition at EDF is to support a third of the growth of the requests in electricity in the next decade by just changing the usages. Electricity is only a third of the energy used in our country. All the rest is fossil energy, so it's import, so it's strategic dependency, so it's volatility on our economic conditions. So the main motivation of this carbon neutral, Pierre Mesmer, when he started the electronuclear program, the theory of the greenhouse effect was only at the lab stage. So that was done for strategic regions. We wanted to be energetically independent. So on the basis of the same approach, we can electrify, decarbonize, and be independent and competitive. That's our objective.
Just so we really understand, because this is quite complex, and if people could get afraid of, because at one point we're being told that we may not have enough electricity to heat up our homes, and then 2 years later you're telling us that we can export, but you're telling me that we could have 2 times the consumption of electricity in Belgium, and this way we could export, and we could also avoid depending on fossil fuels by how much. Would we be autonomous? No, because we'd have to multiply by 2 our electricity consumption or production. Right now, 1/3 of our energy consumption is supplied by electricity. If we were fully electrical, the energy autonomy of France would have to multiply the electricity production by 2 if we wanted to reach autonomy. Had we not stopped our investments in nuclear energy a few years back, how much would we reach? How much we would have reached now by now? 40 to 50%. I'm not saying this to regret it. The answer is I don't know. Because the reason why electric uses have changed is also thanks to technology. There were no electrical cars 20 years ago. So can we remove this additional electricity to then strengthen and accelerate electric mobility? 20 years ago, no. Now, yes. Managing buildings and geothermal consumption, storage, etc., wasn't possible 20 years ago. Now it's common sense. It's what we do on a daily basis. Industrial processes were now, thanks to different technologies which combine electricity and heat, we're now able to combine it to decarbonize electricity, and that's something that we weren't able to do 20 years ago. So now we're capable of producing this electricity, but we needed to do it fast enough to support the increase of production means for electricity and the availability of networks. What you're saying is that we shouldn't be afraid of converting our electricity, our consumption into electricity, because we'll be able to produce electricity. Well, yes. Well, that's good news. On nuclear production, right, I know that there are a lot of surveys, but nuclear energy used to be unpopular in France. Now it's quite well accepted, isn't it? Well, in the regions, of course, we'll see what the survey tells us, but a lot of regions in France now want more nuclear energy. So yes, I think that our fellow citizens are accepting it now. But of course, it needs to come with trust. So it's up to the players of the nuclear sector, including EDF, because they're the main player, and it's up to them to maintain this trust. And this goes through know-how, but also transparency, but as well as a process through which we bring together the players, but also the fellow citizens. This trust needs to be maintained based on the fact that we maintain our nuclear fleet and plants. There is no political debate on this. There still is, and it's necessary. But we're no longer debating the necessity of nuclear energy. There are those debates at European level, but what we want at EDF now is EDF does not mean nuclear energy in France. It means energy in France. Our mission is to bring competitive, abundant, decarbonized energy in France. And we can't fulfill our mission if most of the energy mix is not from nuclear source, because people, our citizens, want electricity when they need it. We have a neighbor, I'm sorry, let me finish, but we have a neighboring country that believes, and that's been believing for some time now, that it is possible to create an electrical system where we only have renewable and network sources of energy. This country is currently writing to its companies that in the future it would be better for them to start producing when there's wind and sun. I'm slightly exaggerating, but not that bad. Let me tell you that companies are wondering how they're going to organize their shifts based on the availability of the environmental elements. And if we want to be serious in our willpower to transition, and we've been committed to doing it for the past 20 years, we need a mix of production sources, and we need to look at the different characteristics of these sources. And renewable is incredible. Solar and wind are incredible, but it's intermittent. And it needs to be offset by means that can be ordered. So we ensure the stability of the system to supply energy whenever they need it. Right now, renewable energies are around account for about 15% of what we're able to supply. We need to have a balanced mix. In a system where we have a lot of energy supply that can be ordered, we can add renewable energy, but we need a reliable source of energy. Going back to the price, and I know that this is something that's important for everyone here. We're not going to look at the rearview mirror, but let's try and look at the prices and their evolution. The electricity prices, let me remind you that this is a European market that we're in. This European market allows us to export electricity and to drop the French price by benefiting from export and marketing of our electricity when we have too much. The only year when we missed electricity, which was the year when we had the Ukraine crisis and the shortage in water and the industrial problems that we had in our plants, we were able to import and not be in the dark thanks to this European market. So we are currently living in this European market, and we have to abide by the European market rules. And in this market, the lessons from the Ukraine crisis were drawn so that we could and learned to be able to anticipate in the long run prices, which and the fact that the prices fluctuate all the time is something that is detrimental to energy providers. So EDF and other players in the market showed the example by offering long-term prices. A year ago, exactly, to the date, prices for 2025 were around 150 euros per megawatt. Right now, thanks to this long-term market, us or our competitors are able to offer prices between 65 and 70 euros until 2029 included per terawatt. So this long-term visibility with less fluctuations than previously, including with restricted prices, state-regulated prices, that allows industrial players to make decisions. They know that in 5 years' time, electricity will cost them that much. Then you have other transport networks, etc., that can fluctuate prices, but at least economic players can make the right decisions, but it's also a great way for us to invest. And if we don't know exactly what we'll have to deal with tomorrow, of course we won't invest either. We'd like to continue this debate with other questions, including one that was asked by Xavier Bertrand last week. We said to him that we were going to have Luc Raymond with us, and we asked him if he had a question for you.
Bien, merci Xavier.
Thank you, Xavier. One last question. We have. Do you have questions for him? Well, of EDF, we have different plants. What should we think about SMRs? How could we anticipate? What should we think about SMRs? Isn't it a new solution for data centers that we need, especially given the digital revolution? Do we have the capacity to anticipate the future? Thank you very much, and I hope to see you at the next edition of this World Forum. I think he's in Japan and he's probably going to bed by now. SMR, first let's explain SMR. SMR sounds small and modular reactor. It is a new trend that's emerging in the nuclear sector. This is good news, because when you're alone, defining, building, operating, maintaining infrastructures, you end up feeling quite lonely. And for the past 20 years now, the only player that's been doing that, not only in Europe, but also in the Western world, it's EDF. And having an abundance of other innovations with startups that are coming up with new ideas, telling us, well, we'd like to do reactors slightly differently. We want to rethink modularity, we want to rethink the size, the activity, how the different players are interacting, and this is very good and quite unsettling actually for the sector. Now, there are different projects, including the ones that we're looking at, and we are in a phase where, right now, there were a lot of projects. The number of projects that are emerging on work sites is quite limited. So we need to make sure that these projects that come up with a new concept, which is interesting, because it's true that the complexity of the 20th century nuclear sector is that we're not as fast as in the 1980s. The 6 reactors of Gravelines, it took us 5 years or 7 years of production, but within 5 years we were able to produce the reactors. We really relied on the construction industry coming out of of a very highly industrial phase, and we were able to build different reactors in parts at the same time. Now it's more difficult. So these small and modular reactors was to respond to the necessity to have to produce reactors faster. But then we have physics that is more favorable to larger reactors. They're more profitable, larger reactors are more productive and more profitable. So between small and large reactors, you need to think about it. And creating a network, when you're creating a national network, you need large ones. Because if you need to supply energy to everyone, it's easier to do modularity on 2 reactors. And for Gravine, initially, we opted for 6. So it's easier to be modular on 2 than for 5, 50, 60 reactors. Then we also have complementary needs that will emerge as we progress on our energy transition. The data center can be in the middle of the plant, and we don't have to put it next to a small reactor, but in the future, a data center and an industry that will generate just as much heat as electricity. If an industrial player needs heat, or a group of industrial players that need heat in a given site, then the small reactor that is specialized for heat starts making sense. That's true. But it's this kind of use, as well as the size of the reactor, that we will have to think about. And at this stage, EDF is looking at the different projects, all of them. And we talk to the different project managers that want to talk with us. And of course, we continue to develop our know-how and our technologies and our techniques to allow us to be ready for these small reactors the day they emerge on the market. We don't want to abandon what's necessary to supply energy to the country. Right now we have 57 reactors that are in operation. Flamanville is out of the scope, but the others were built in 20 years. So we need to be ready when these ones are manufactured and are no longer in use, and we need to be ready to replace them in 20 or 30 years. And of course, we're going to try to extend them as much as possible in the safest way possible, of course, for people who are working on them today. We are going to take questions from the room for our impressive witnesses, but you were saying that your transition was pragmatic, and even though it's sometimes offbeat. But I'm thinking of your subcontractors of Bourbourg. I don't know if you know it, but it's near Gravelines, and Gravelines, where we have a nuclear plant. It's a 22-employee company that works for you, and they're currently working on their 2025 budget. They are going to have to say no to sustainable decisions. How can you remain kind and understanding? How can you continue to support them and to make sure that they tag along in this transition? Because of course, to co-design this solution, because you create jobs and you give work to a lot of different players and subcontractors. I'm sorry, I don't know all of them. I don't know all of the subcontractors in the region. And for the OPR2, there will be 1,000 people working from subcontractors that will be working on that site. Much more than that, actually. Much more than that. Well, good news. OPR2 will employ 12,000 people per day. I was talking about the operational phase. Well, that's not for today, or tomorrow. It will be for 2038, actually. Well, we still have time. The 12,000 people will be working every day on the work site for the construction phase, so that's quite significant as well. So, but we need to be able to build with our industrial chain the electronuclear sector. Right now, 200,000 people are working in the electronuclear sector right now in France. And if you add electricity, the electricity sector, you reach 600,000 jobs. So we need to create this electrification sector. And I think it's up to us as EDF, not only to do everything, but at least to pave the way. And that's what we're trying to do. And the fact that we want to pave the way, we need to avoid being the fluctuating element. It's not always easy, but we're trying to stick to it. We want to maintain our stakeholders to make sure that they don't fluctuate either, or they don't generate fluctuations either. And sometimes we are met with headwinds as well, or at least headwinds that require us to mobilize the whole sector. 2 years ago, we had an industrial problem, rather. That's the only year when we imported electricity. We had a technical phenomenon in our plants that we didn't know about. And for precautions, we had to stop 10 of them. and then we had to repair them quickly. And we had to mobilize many more people than anticipated to do that. So we called all the different players of the sector, and sometimes people blamed us for calling upon foreign players, but that's what we had to do. We mobilized as much as possible the different players in the world to solve this issue. But for the future construction, it will be a 20-year work period. So the question is not so much what are we going to do next year, but rather how can we accelerate by avoiding to accelerate and then slow down and then accelerate and then slow down. I meet on a very regular basis to discuss it with the different players. Going too fast would make us run the risk of having to accelerate and then slow down and then accelerate and then slow down again. So we need to find the right pace for our work sites. And the main criteria for Penly, Bugey, Gravelines sites is that if we start the first nuclear break, we need to continue. We can't stop. Pierre Morat used to say modernity is about tempo. We have 5 more minutes with you and 2 partners of the World Forum, Gilles Leclerc, Philippe Rémignon. Welcome, gentlemen. Please join me on stage. Where are you? Oh, here they are. Please take a seat.
Eh, ils sont chouettes les gens du World Forum, hein, parce qu'ils applaudissent avant que vous ne parliez.
See, our audience is incredible. They give you a round of applause even before you take the floor.
Tiens, je vais m'installer là. L'un est président de
One is the head of Velogia, a developer, real estate developer and planner, and Exantia, also General Director of Exantia. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining the Club of the World Forum. Each of them have a question for you. Who should we start with? Gilles? Okay. Hello, Mr. Raymond. You are as a player of medico-social sector, I wondered how EDF could support the medico-social sector in its energy transition and in its decarbonization, including everything related to the existing fleet and buildings. Well, we already do it. Thank you for this question, but we already do it a lot through a company called in the northern part of France that's not very recognized as being part of EDF, but it's incredibly important for our decarbonization. It's called Daxia, a company that was founded not long ago, not far from here. The headquarters is not far from here, and it's the cradle of the knowledge of EDF to support decarbonization from the client's side. Then the EDF group can add the decarbonized megawatt that are needed, but generally speaking, to decarbonize a user, so be it a hospital or else, will depend on other infrastructures and your infrastructures. And in hospitals, you have specific infrastructures and electrical infrastructures that is something that I was really looking into, because in operating theaters, it's a critical use and application of electricity. So for us, what matters the most is to be able to support the social and health sector by offering you the solutions that you need. Now, of course, a nursing home doesn't have the same needs as a hospital, but regardless, we should really start from your clients' needs, that we will be able to find the right solution, the local solution, because if you have an urban heating system, we won't be able to meet your needs based on the heat urban local system, but you also have ad hoc solutions, and large hospitals usually have an ad hoc solution, and we need to find energy efficiency as well as heat decarbonization by using these 3 pillars. Dalkia is able to support you. Probably its competitors as well, but I think that Dalkia would do it better. And of course, you're probably very objective. Yes, Philippe Rémignon, yes, Dalkia is the Général de Chauffe, and one of the main clients of Général de Chauffe was actually Velogia, so it's a small world. Right now, we are in the temple of entrepreneurship. Velogia has always had this in its DNA. So I have a question, and I'd like to apologize in advance, but because I know that this is very much related to our sector. But as an employer, are you aware of the issues of housing for employees? How many employees do you have? A few hundreds of thousands. We know that this can be quite difficult to find housing, but the situation is different from one region to the other. For an employee working on dams, for instance, where he's working on coal, he needs to be able to reach the dam within 20 to 30 minutes when they're living in the mountain. Let me tell you that it can. It means that we need to handle their housing situation ourselves, and because most of the time the house was built in the same year as the dam, we need to refurbish them or modernize these infrastructures. But we mainly make sure that our employees are in civil housing, to make sure that our employees have the right housing situation that meets their needs. And it's not always easy, especially when we bring a major disruption of the ecosystem. So when we arrive with a major work site, or work with 12,000 people every day for 6 to 7 years, of course we need to handle that. And that's why we try to anticipate as much as possible for these large work sites. And the public debate really helps enlighten these issues and challenges, because a large work site that is seen as something detrimental to the region, it won't work well. So on Gravelines, Bugey, what we want is to have this approach that really tackles all of the planning elements, including the medical elements. For Gravelines, it's not as critical because it's in a peri-urban area with a lot of capacity. But if we're talking about Penly, that's not too far away. But in Penly, you have the Dieppe city with 40,000 inhabitants 10 kilometers away, and then Tréport, Le Tréport, with 5,000 inhabitants, and you don't have any other city in the area. And we're supposed to be able to bring 12,000 people on the site every day for 7 years, including the ecosystem, and we need to factor it in. And we need to anticipate it not only for the EDF employees, which is one thing, but also for the different players that are going to be working on the work site. Not only in terms of housing, people who will be working there temporarily, but they need to be modular for long-term use, in order to make sure that we can support this work site. So we need to prepare for that. And just like in any other sector, when you're well prepared, it works smoothly. So of course we're preparing for that, and we're hoping that it will be as smooth as possible. But at least we know that we need territorial, regional cooperation, and right now it's working really well in Gravelines, but also in the other two sites. Thank you very much. In Dunkirk, I'd just like to mention the fact that the president of the urban community of Dunkirk, Patrice Verglicht, pays close attention to the necessity to build a lot of housing units, not only in subsidized housing, but also houses for rent, because EDF have different, EDF employees have different resources and levels of resources. But this is something that we discussed with Mathias Pourceux. As a player in the ecosystem, would be more than happy to discuss it and to help you. Mathias is here. And of course, we haven't forgotten the fact that this is rooted in our decarbonization strategy and in the World Forum's approach. So we are counting on our partners to continue to help us decarbonize all this. Of course, we need collective work. Jean-Pierre, were you reassured by the offbeat action of Luc Raymond? I'd like to thank Luc for his very bold and direct intervention. I was struck by your behavior, which is quite reassuring. It shows that at the head of EDF, we have an industrial entrepreneur, an industrial player. And this is somewhat comforting for the future of EDF.
Merci.
And reassuring. Thank you very much, and thank you, everyone. Thank you, gentlemen. Please feel free to go back to your seats. Now, ladies and gentlemen, a few weeks ago, the World Forum asked questions to its audience on preconceived ideas about these offbeat initiatives as per the theme of this 2024 edition. We've submitted to your vote the different offbeat initiatives, and we'd like to show you the 5 offbeat initiatives that you've chosen. Here are these offbeat initiatives on the screen. I'm not going to describe all of them, but we are going to try and decipher some of them with the different witnesses that will be with me on stage in a minute. And we'll start right away. And this is a first for him, and we're happy that he's here. Sylvain Wasserman, head of ADEME, for the very first offbeat interview on preconceived ideas. Hello and welcome.
Alors l'ADEME,
ADEME. See, we only have loyal people. Have a lot of paper everywhere. This is probably Dominique's. That's his poem.
On est ravis parce que l'ADEME est partenaire.
I'm really happy because ADEME has been a partner for several years now. An unavoidable partner, the Agency for Transition. Of course, we're talking about transition here at this World Forum, and this is a first for you being here. And the preconceived idea that we'd like to submit to you is that France only represents 1% of global greenhouse gas emissions, and actually 0.8% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. Why should we do all that work if we hardly have any impact? What would you answer to this preconceived idea? Well, first, good afternoon. We can sit down, sure. I'm really happy to be here, especially because ADEME has been a partner since the very beginning, I believe. And my regional director often talks to me about this event, so I'm really happy. I've been working for ADEME for a year and a half now, and I'm really, really happy to be able to partake in this event. Let's dive into this preconceived idea. It's true that some people tend to think, well, you know what, it doesn't really matter. France doesn't really present much in terms of greenhouse gases, emissions. And secondly, another phenomenon that we hear about, we apparently would be the only people in the world who would like to decarbonize when the Chinese are not doing anything and the US either, etc. So it's really important to start from these preconceived ideas and to try and debunk them. First, I'd like to insist on one element, which is we shouldn't imagine that we're the only ones to decarbonize. There are massive initiatives everywhere, in China as well, which is still the biggest greenhouse gas emission issuer. But in China, they're creating green areas at the scale of a region which represent almost countries, and they create green zones. They create also Silk Roads with decarbonized transportation. And at one point, they'll come up to us and say, you Europeans are very interested in the climate. Well, you're right. And I'm going to show you that our products are more decarbonized than yours.
And so the question a lot of companies ask themselves is, can I simply bury my head in the sand and wait for it to stop, or do I have the obligation to decarbonize? Two simple examples. I've been going around the region since my presidency, 52 trips. I'm going to quote two cases. Somebody producing special steel. He said decarbonation is going to be a competitive edge in my business. We talked about Arcelor. I mean, today steel has been made using gas and coal. How do I decarbonize? And a glass manufacturer with a large glass company told me, well, that's easy. My sales are 50% of the luxury industry. We're going to be decarbonized, so it's going to be with you or without you. So for this glass manufacturer, the subject of decarbonation is a topic which is at the core of their business, which is a strategic question. And the boss said, if I don't decarbonize, I will be out of business because the world moves fast, and I will have competitors who will have decarbonized. That's interesting because you quoted a smaller company and a larger company, and we are concerned about the PM small and medium-sized companies. So you confirm to us that decarbonation And competitive edge, there's no debate. Yes, of course there is debate, but that's the core of the business, actually. I've been a company boss. I presented risk matrices to my shareholders. Now, if you take an industrial company working with gas, so carbonated, it's got one risk to add, is the scenario of inaction. What happens if I don't do anything about it? In this case of the class specialist, we've seen it, but there are a lot of factors. The large private groups decarbonize and they put pressure on their subcontractors. There are compulsory environmental conditions. Financial institutions flash a commitment on the improvement of decision. In 2022, when the gas multiplied its price by 10, I mean, the SME company said if it lasts another 3 months, I mean, we're going to die times 10 for natural gas. So when you move to electricity, which is a decarbonated energy, when you move to renewable energies, you protect your business model and you get rid of this uncertainty of the variation of the energy costs, and you get rid of one uncertainty on which nobody knows how to answer here. How much will it cost 5 years from now to produce 1 ton of carbon? Which is the right method to assess a decarbonation plan when I'm a small or very small company? I've seen a dream of a methodology on which our engineers 6 years ago said one day was going to be important on the market. It's not only to say what is the my target in 2040, because everybody is going to be greener than green in 2040. The companies explain that in 2040 and 2035 they will be decarbonated. So at the ADEME, they developed ACT, Accelerated Carbon Transition. They build up a decarbonation journey, and they prove the solidity and implementation of the decarbonation plan. When we've seen that, we thought, okay, this is a time when a large private group has got to differentiate subcontractor A from B, when public procurement have got to give points between A and B on the environmental clause. I mean, we're going to have to know which is the most credible. And the Banque de France, which is directly connected with all the companies in France, carried out an analysis to state which is the best methodology with climate indicators. They said that the best one was the ADEME. I mean, they had to look at all the other methodologies internationally. They use it as a subjacent to their climate indicator, and we signed a contract with the governor saying that this is the reference methodology of the Banque de France, and he asked us to accompany him in Germany. And today we're telling the French company, you have a leading competitive edge. Why? Because as Luc Raymond avoided to say, being modest, I mean, we've got a huge competitive edge that some company directors forget. In France, when we go from natural gas to electricity, we have a totally decarbonated energy. I talked with somebody building optical machine for the sorting of waste. We support him. We've been supporting it for 18 years. Now he's number 2 in the world, and he's faced with German competition. This is all very electro-intensive. When you bring your machine in France, it's totally decarbonated, whereas your opponent needs 25% of coal. And if it was produced in Poland, it will be 60% carbonated. It's been 10 years I've been working with you at ADEM, so he used the ACT methodology to lead to make of his decarbonation a competitive edge. That's the message we're passing on to you. Let's jump on this opportunity for French companies. That's not true for all the Polish companies, far from it. So this methodology ACT on the ADEM website is available. Two more questions rapidly. The first of this question is, companies and territories need you. The state finances are bad, public entities too. What about you? Got good news. Got good news for territories. We had two wars. I mean, the financial situation need everybody to make efforts. We had two major challenges. Industrial decarbonation. I said that the companies need financial resources coming from the state to decarbonize. The second element was the heat fund, renewable heat, that the elected representative, and we were talking about Delca earlier on, that's it, for the energetic transition of their territory. On the first program, we had 1.6 million euros from the state for the decarbonization of the companies added to the investment of 2030. Well, we've got on the table, and I take all the necessary resources, etc. But the position of the government is clear. A lot of MPs have helped us there, and the position of the government is clear. Today, the decarbonation budget from the state to help or to support the decarbonation plan is superior to what it was in 2024. That's at the time I'm talking about it. I mean, you know the uncertainties that we might think of, but the government gave us a very strong message on that. Our heat fund, I mean, we're talking about 800 million euros this year. Last Friday, it's maintained. This amount is maintained from the government. That means that these two funds, which represent 80% of the funds of ADEM, have been certified with a clear line that these are not costs, they are investments on long-term investments and long-term choices. We had Tikamoon on this stage who dived on his strategy on the regenerative industry. He sells furniture and services that should last longer than the life of a tree. And I asked him the question of the Black Friday. He said, yes, I'll do it, but intelligently. Would you buy during the Black Friday? No, but I'm going to answer your question. It's very important. You tackle the first theme, which is the evolution of business models. I mean, at ADEM, we did an exercise which I thought thrilling, supporting a French group for 18 months to see how they draw up their marketing offers, bearing in mind the environmental constraints. We had a traditional model before that. We sell the more possible. I want to quote an example which is a little bit difficult maybe, of a pesticide retailer. Rather than selling more pesticide to a farmer, I'm going to sell him an hectare of healthy corn, and I'm going to tell him which quantity to put on this field at what time. So minus 10% use and no value being created, because it's in his interest to value the rendered service. That's an extremely concrete example of functionality economy. I mean, people looking for always more flow. Like this world is changing. We're talking about the functionality economy, but I'm thinking about the business models and on the sustainability of goods. When you go from selling things per unit and you go away from that and you move on to the service rendered with the hiring of goods, for instance. There's a company we've worked with, and they're doing hand towels. They want to have the more lasting product for the hand towel to last as long as possible. So we reverse the model, thinking about more sustainability. Black Friday is another topic. Briefly, we had a specific campaign, and there was a question about asking a question to the smart customer and ask him to think about how he decides on what to purchase. So it's better to buy a French-produced machine with a French maintenance person to look after it. So we're starting this campaign again about the shop assistant, but we've got this logic saying we've got this responsibility to give to the consumer, to the citizens, all the elements he needs to be enlightened, to make an enlightened decision. We want to make available to the customer all the information for him to make his purchasing decision clearly. The consumer, the citizen, must be able to ask himself the right questions and have the answers by trusting third parties. So the 1%, we've got to go for it. I mean, will you come back? Yes, we need you here. Thank you, Mr. Leatherman. Thank you.
On va continuer à entendre des témoins inspirants comme le président de l'ADEME il y a quelques instants. On va retrouver
listening inspiring testimonies, but we're going to find Dominique Sampiero again. He's together with Quentin Carnaille, another artist, but this time you're going to contribute. Mario and Anthony will be in the room, and we'll ask you questions. Time for us to get things set up. Quentin, Mario, what's going to happen here?
Le micro, s'il vous plaît.
À contre-temps, donc l'art.
Offbeat, so art is a catalyst, revelation element. It helps you to touch you emotionally, and when we do that, we touch you individually, and that's what we want to prove, because in society today it's important for everybody to be touched, moved individually, to want to take actions. With the Agence d'Art Impact 3 Folium, the performance has already started. Dominique Sampiero is a rewarded artist. Quentin Carnaille is an internationally famous, and they want to enact a collective opus to be deconstructed, to be offbeat about the work, about the world, the word work. How could you imagine the word work differently? I'm going to speak company language. We're going to decarbonize the word work. To twist a word is not turn your eyes over. It's given it a new opening using this word into mechanical a way. We're going to associate the word work with something it's never associated with. Let's give it an example. It's going to be the work of. I'm not asking you to think too much. I mean, just let your brain pop. I mean, I'm going to tell you the work of silence, for instance. And then I'm going to write it on this mirror. The connection to the mirror with Quentin is something that has to do with alterity, looking at one another, looking at yourself partly or in reverse order. So the work of silence. With this list, we want to cover this mirror totally. The microphone, first idea, the work of, don't think too hard. we're not allowed to put words. He said the word comes from your guts. Okay, guts. Yes, a little bit of, but symbolically it's the work of your heart, of emotion. I think it's quite interesting. There's no judgment to say it's good or bad, no, the work of guts, but can have something to do with emotion. You can use concrete work or not. The work of water, yes. Very important. We don't think very often that water works for us in the river. I mean, EDF obviously are clear on that, but and the idea of a collective opus is to get together different sensibilities, imaginations, to try and transfer reality. The work of beauty. Wonderful. I shouldn't say it's bad or it's wrong. No, there are things that speak to me more than others, the work of beauty. Everybody who has intervened or acted for this work will have his part in the work of reflection. It's most true. I mean, reflecting or reflection is work. It's on the verge. I mean, it's already something we're going to work together, we're going to invest in together. I like to be surprised, to put work where we have not noticed that there was work, but the work of reflection, I'll go for it. Let's continue to decarbonize work. The work of motion, yeah. Very suggestive of dance, culture, energy. The work around our singularities. Yeah. The work of singularity. Thank you for your participation. I mean, it's getting good. The work of words, yes, of course. The work of words, rité. Yours is okay, yes. I was a primary school teacher and a kindergarten one almost. So I used to write whatever the children used to tell me. The work of the sun, which is the source of all our renewable energy. But would that be Louis Philippe? Finally, your faces look like you, I mean, resemble you. I mean, I'm going to go and look for the 10 other boards because it's not enough room. The work of time, yes, of course, and of the offbeat. Still got room for 2 lines. Room for 2 lines, yeah. The work of meaning, yeah. I'm going to tell you a little bit more, but the mirror you saw at the beginning was the other way around. I mean, we're writing on it now. So at the back of the mirror that was presented to you initially, and we're going to present it to you again initially and have an action on the glass.
Le travail d'équipe.
Teamwork. Work of the team, yeah.
Cache ta joie.
I mean, okay, don't jump for joy. Yeah, but I mean, the question is, teamwork exists. I mean, we all often talk about it. The work of the sun, we don't talk so much about it. I'm getting a little bit more touchy. The work of dreams. No, I'm not going to go for it. No. The work of dreams as a team. No way. The work of dreams. I don't keep everything that I write. I mean, I'm a writer. I mean, Creation is choosing. Creating is choosing. The work of peace. Yeah, that's good to close on that. Round of applause.
C'est Christophe qui a dit ça?
Christophe said that, yeah?
Christophe?
Yeah.
Et merci à tous pour votre participation.
Thank you all for your participation. Thank you.
Alors, ils reviendront au troisième semestre.
They will come back for the third round at the end of this session because there's going to be a collective result of that, of this opus, and you will realize that later on. It looks nice.
Très bien, toi.
You write very
Idée reçue
nicely.
suivante.
Second preconceived idea. Who was here last year?
Alors, il y a des fidèles.
There are loyal people, and it's very good, I mean, because we have a renewed part of the audience. Last year, the Hauts-de-France delegation of the thing came with an initiative, young people, and they've worked. A lot of actions have been started and were assessed this afternoon in a workshop. And when the foundation came, they suggested the testimony of a very young girl in a region, a very powerful one. And the picture is here, if we can have a look at it. I've got it on my screen, but it's not here at the back. So a year later, we're going to suggest that you welcome one of the teams working on one of the projects carried in this program, high youngsters, and we're going to put them through the following preconceived idea. The unemployment rate and social questions do not impact my company. They are more the responsibility of specialist stakeholders. It's not my job, it's that of others, and they're going to explain to you, I hope, the opposite. Christine Girardin, in charge of the Homo profession, Narcine Djekdini, training in Maubeuge, Zaid Agro, who is Human Resource Department of the group, of a German group, and there's a Colibri, Thierry Fouquet. Please come here. You've got about 10 minutes to explain to us what you did. The answers are territorial one. I mean, it's a game of actors.
You only have one mic. Could we get another one?
Est-ce que ça concerne l'entreprise,
the answer is it a company's business to look at social issues? The answer is no. It won't take 12 minutes. What happened last year? There were several of us who stood up, Fondation de France, Réseau and so on and so forth. We were angry with saying we can't accumulate records of poverty for the youth, which should be a source of optimism. We have the youngest region in France. And it's the youth who don't, in this region, don't have a training, are not educated, they don't have a degree, and therefore no job. And I remember that a year ago, we had an incredible advocacy work, and 1 year later, with 17 organizations, 9 projects came out of this region. And I'd like to take 15 seconds on the method. What did we try to do? We wanted to stop call for projects, which is killing organizations, which is killing local players. They're fed up with it because they would need a full FTE to answer all the call for projects. And we did the opposite. We decided, well, how about starting from the region, to try to listen to the players, to try to address the players who are already acting and saying, well, you know what, we're going to be supporting you for 3 years, not only in terms of money, but also in terms of agility, etc. If, and only if, you play collectively. And this gave me the shivers because earlier I had an interview with the 9 product managers, which are sometimes competing on funding. And within 6 months, they launched 9 projects that changed the lives, and that will continue to change the lives of the youth in the next 2 years in the region. We need skills, we need money, of course, but I'd like to call upon each and every one of you. We need money, we need funds
Et puis,
for
nous,
the
ce qui nous
third
intéresse
round.
aussi, c'est de regarder.
And what
J'ai failli dire tout
we're
à l'heure,
interested
si
in
j'avais eu
is
le micro, j'aurais dit ça. Le
to
travail
look
du regard,
at
le travail de
people.
l'écoute. Si on prenait un peu plus
Listening
de
to
temps de
people, we need to
regarder
look at people.
ce
If we
qui
took
marche
some
dans
more
cette
time
région
to see what
extraordinaire.
works in the
Et
region,
voilà.
we
J'ai
would
rencontré
find incredible
ces trois-là. Alors, ils ne sont pas dans
And
les
I met
projets
all three of these people. Now, they're not
de haut les
in
jeunes. Pourquoi? Parce que
the
les
projects
projets
for the
ils
youth.
démarrent.
Why?
Ils étaient
Because
un peu
they're
flippés
only
tout à l'heure, un
starting
peu
these
stressés, parce qu'ils venaient nous présenter
projects.
les
People were really
prémices
tense
de leur
because
collaboration.
they were only
Eux, là,
presenting the embryo of their
font du
collaboration. But
collectif
these ones
un
have been
sport de
working
combat,
collectively
un
for
sport de
some
quotidien.
time, and this is something that
Et je
they
les ai
do on a
rencontrés il y
daily
a
basis. And I
2 ans.
met them
Ils
2
ont
years
témoigné
ago.
d'ailleurs au lancement de
And
Haut les Jeunes.
actually, they
Je voudrais juste que vous les
testified
écoutiez. Je vais essayer d'être rapide. Alors, Mohamed
with
Aklo,
the youth,
vous êtes le
and I'll try and
DRH
be as quick as possible.
et IT
You
aussi,
are
je crois,
HR
d'une
manager
très belle
of
verrerie
a
qui est côté
beautiful
belge, mais à
glass
10 km de Fourmi,
manufacturing
c'est à peu près ça.
plant
Et qui travaille, on
manufacturing
parlait
plant.
tout à l'heure d'une verrerie en France qui travaillait pour L'Oréal, vous c'est votre quotidien.
There was one that was
Vous
working
travaillez
for
que le
L'Oréal,
luxe,
but you
le
only
top
work for the
et
luxury
vous avez
brands,
à
for
peu
the
près
top
750
level, right? And you have about
collaborateurs, c'est ça?
750
Tout à fait.
employees? Yes,
C'est une boîte qui
absolutely.
marche très bien.
It's a
Et
company
donc
that
vous
works really
embauchez
well.
régulièrement des
And
opérateurs,
you
mais attention,
regularly
c'est
recruit
des
operators,
femmes et des
but
hommes qui doivent être capables
we have men and
d'avoir,
women that need to be
de surveiller 148
able to monitor 148 points of quality in each and every product. So you need people who are
Vous faites
professional,
appel
committed,
à,
etc.
évidemment à des services en Belgique, c'est normal.
And you
ça se
recruit
passe
in
bien, on va
Belgium.
commenter les choses. Et
Things
puis à un
are
moment
going
donné,
well,
vous dites,
and then at
pas
one
loin,
point,
là, il y a
you
une
thought,
boîte de formation
well, there's a
qui
training
pourrait
company
m'aider
not far from here, and that could help me.
évidemment, recruter des collaborateurs dont j'ai besoin.
Help me recruit
Ça marche
the
pas
people
parce
that I
qu'on-
need.
Ah ben non, on peut pas. on
But
est
it
côté
didn't
français.
work because they told you, well,
Et
no,
puis,
we can only
vous
work with French
rencontrez
people.
ces
And then
gens-là.
you met these two
C'est la
people.
vraie vie, hein.
This
Je
is
crois
real
que vous
life I'm
rencontrez
talking
dans un
about
club
here.
de sport.
And I think you met at a gym,
Tout à fait. faut bien tout
at the
dire.
gym,
Et vous commencez à discuter.
at a
Et qu'est-ce qui
fitness
se passe à ce moment-là?
club, and you started talking.
Voilà,
What
merci à
happened?
tous.
Well,
Merci pour l'invitation.
thanks for inviting me.
Tout à fait
My name is
précision,
Mohamed
donc
Saïd
on est
Atgour.
une boîte belge d'une
We are
multinationale
a
allemande.
Belgium company coming from a German group.
Bien sûr, à 10 km de la
We're
ville la
10
plus proche
kilometers
de
away.
Fourmi, mais en tout cas, on est à 500 mètres de la frontière française.
We're 500
750
meters
travailleurs,
away from the French
60% du personnel,
border.
sont des
And
résidents français.
60% of the employees are actually French residents.
D'accord. C'est une bonne boîte, c'est bien.
Voilà.
Parfait.
Et effectivement, donc voilà,
So
on
yes.
a quand même 60% de notre
Again,
personnel est
60%
français,
of
donc
our
bien sûr,
staff
recruter
is
dans
French.
un métier
So we want to
d'hiver,
recruit
on est
people in
amené
the
à
glass
un
industry.
studio
This
avec
is
des
a heavy industry.
de
We have
parachèvement.
furnaces. We have.
Fournisseur numéro 1
We are the number one supplier for L'Oréal, the L'Oréal group. So we were looking for applicants that had the right skill sets, and we couldn't find them. We don't have many competitors in the region, so it was difficult for us to recruit people who were skilled and trained. And it all started on a parking lot because my son goes to a sports club, and they were members of the club. And we discussed on the parking lot, and that's how it happened. And he, the gentleman next to us, with Ali, they work in a high school, and they're not people who say no. So they wanted to really remove these legal obstacles that prevented you from getting the right labor force, skilled and trained labor force. Yes, I'm a supervisor of the Aumont Professional High School, so in the south of the region. But it's a high school where we have a philosophy that says something that, along the lines of Romain Gary quote, he said, knowing the limits of what's possible, not so much to stop before it, but rather to try the impossible in the best conditions possible. Whenever there's a challenge in our professional high school or vocational high school, we brainstorm. And there was a major challenge for us. It was the first time that a Belgian company was soliciting us to put into place a training. And instead of thinking, well, this border is a limit or an obstacle or a wall, as some see it, we thought, well, no, let's consider it a bridge. We want to cross this bridge and we want to remove these obstacles. So we worked with France Travail, obviously, but also with the region. That's helped us tremendously as well. And then a GEC, which is a group of employers for social inclusion, and who really work with people who haven't worked for a long time. And we tried to source with France Travail people, especially in an underprivileged area, the Fourni region. And what's interesting is that all these partners, we were talking about the meaning and the purpose, that you take these partners, you're able to mobilize teachers after 6 p.m., sometimes during the holidays, and you go to underprivileged neighborhoods so that these young people could become employed by that company in the long run. Yes, we went everywhere because we went to see people who hadn't had a job for a long time, or who didn't want to get a job, or who didn't want to come out of... people think that people don't want to come out of their job and that they don't want to make the effort anymore. That's what we see and hear about in the media. What we hear in the media is terrible about these underprivileged populations, but we want to prove the opposite. And with Mr. Zegni, amongst others, we put into place an initiative for these underprivileged neighborhoods. But I'll give him the floor. What's impressive is that you have almost zero absenteeism in your trainings. But on top of that, you continue to reinvent yourselves. You reinvent the wheel. You said, well, the risk is that, but they may not drive 40 kilometers to a training center. I know that we don't have much time, so I'll try and go as fast as possible. But you almost invented carpooling to lower the cost. What was difficult is that we were not far from Fourni, and we had the Aumont High School. You have 40 kilometers between the different sites, so the mobility issue was important. There is a transportation offer, but it takes you 2 hours to get to point A to B. And so we asked everyone to be mobilized. We put into place a carpooling system, and we reached an almost 0% absenteeism rate. People are mobilized, engaged, and integration rate that is really high. What's important is that at the end of the training, the company recruits them. So your philosophy is to be people-centered. You are really people-centric. You have 2,500 interns that, or apprentices that can call you. Yes, absolutely. I just want to be able to be there for these people. And to answer your question, is that you like the fact that when they give you interns, they still support them. They're not just like, oh, well, there you go, you have your interns. No, they still support them when they're working within your company. Yes, we know exactly what we're looking for. We have a profile that we're looking for with skill sets that we're looking for. But what makes a project successful is the people that surround the project. So this is the engagement, the flexibility, especially when you are confronted with challenges. And that's why we came up with a full process from the job interview to the recruiting process, etc., etc. Let's go very quickly here. They've been able to recruit between June and October 400 people. 400 people, ladies and gentlemen. You heard me well. That was another example. But for the second Renault team, Renault in Maubeuge between June, July, and September, October. So they mobilized the teachers during the holiday, and we were open during the holiday. That tells you how collective initiative is powerful. Thank you very much, Thierry. Thank you, everyone. And I'm talking to the people from Dunkerque here, who've never been called by anyone when they showed the impact that they had, and that they had incredible track record. So if you're able to work, if you're looking for people who are able to work collectively, you have their contact details. I'd like to seize this opportunity. I'm probably the only woman who has taken the floor up until now. So I'd like, please, if you'll allow me, to try the impossible and to shift things a little bit. I have a project that I'd like to submit to your ears. I'm a supervisor of a vocational high school, and I always find it incredible that it's not mandatory for trainees to have their driving license, and we've made available for 60 of our students funds to take driving lessons. So all we ask is for our students to do it during the holiday. They need to be present. We have 60 volunteer students. We already have 20 students during the November holidays that went and that took driving lessons thanks to Solidarity Driving School. 80% of success rate for the driving test.
Merci, on retient deux choses, le faire ensemble et également le devoir de piquer les bonnes idées. Ils sont à votre disposition.
The fact that we can steal ideas from one another and we need to work
Pour les jeunes, s'il y a des grandes entreprises, des petits enfants qui veulent s'embarquer avec nous, c'est quand vous voulez.
Thank you.
Merci. Alors, Madame la proviseure, nous allons accueillir tout de suite une autre femme pour apporter
welcome another lady
une idée reçue que vous
to
avez
tackle with the
bienvenue,
next
fondatrice
preconceived
de
idea, Chloé
Civo-Gracie.
Punier, founder of Chloé Gracie.
Installez-vous. Bienvenue.
Make yourself comfortable. I mean, she comes from Berlin, having hopped to Lyon to visit her family. We'll do the pitch of Civo-Gracie. A question about this idea: companies must not influence the political debate or democratic debate. You've got to ask. No, I'll try and be more convincing and quicker. I think that we've got beautiful counterexamples now as to why companies should not influence politics. I'm convinced that companies must contribute to democracy. And we've got lots of different ways of doing so. I mean, when we talk about democracy, people think about politics and it's scary. But I think that we've got the possibility in lots of ways to contribute positively to democracy, which is really bashed around, and it's a dead angle of the CSR, and there's lots of ways of doing it. And we've got the anagram of the civic commitment and democracy. The pitch of this structure that you created, it's true that when you call Civo-Gracie, I mean, our puzzle is democracy, so it's easy to think that it's of interest to everybody. I mean, it's what I'm keen on. I've spent the last 10 years of my career. We're a civic tech platform and a creative agency dealing with citizen commitment, more than 250 organizations in Europe, ministries, NGOs, associations, and committed companies more and more. Our mission is to crack the code of commitment, to find the levers which turn a normal person to somebody who wants to commit and to act. In less than 2 years, we've been working a lot with companies, big corp companies or companies with bringing strong solutions to society problems and social problems. And we can see that it's a strong element for change because as entrepreneurs, we bring solutions to the problems that we identify, and we can create changes in usages, and one of them is to promote the commitment and moving on to actions. There's been the European elections and everything that went around that in our country, the American election just before that. To be clear, can the company drive its collaborators, of course, but also its customers to the democratic act? I'm totally convinced. I mean, there are companies which are pioneers and put participatory setups in their governance with their employees, with their stakeholders. I mean, for a few months, we created the cooperative marketing to take on board the consumers and stakeholders. I mean, we've got a responsibility. When you're an entrepreneur, I mean, you create solutions. We can master very well the marketing codes, and that gives us a responsibility, a lot of responsibility, because it gives the possibility to influence positively our consumers. Yes, the answer is yes. Do you have any examples in the retailing industry, for instance? How do you talk about democracy, about the purchasing order of a mass market product? To talk about democracy for most people, it's too far from them. I don't wake up in the morning thinking, oh, I'm a citizen, I'm going to do that. I mean, we've got to select thematics which are important for people in their everyday life, going out to feed themselves, to organize things. I mean, how do we get the customer to use to do things more positively? We have won a big project where we're going to gather 10 actors of the food transition, startups, cooperatives, small companies, which created this challenge of food transition. I mean, the big pain point of those companies is that they are not financed that well. It's more difficult for them to gain in visibility. In front of us, we've got giant stakeholders promoting different solutions and usages. So we get them together. Then we create a narration because they all work for the same mission, the food transition. We think, okay, we're going to stay away from wokeism and sustainability, etc., because it's meaningful to us, but it speaks less and less to people around us. So we get a narrative. I mean, what is our common basis? To be healthy, that's a safe bet, and we help them to get a narrative going, to federate the resources rather than being each of them in their corner. And we can use strong marketing resources. So in this campaign, we're going to have a lot of billboarding in Berlin. We call on influencers. We can use resources, marketing resources that only larger companies can do that. I mean, these companies have got customers. We use participative elements on which the customers can help them promote the solution. This picture is too early. So the impact on the consumer. The KPIs for the companies is we're going to help you to find clients, and for the consumer is will the consumer go from a solution using virtuous behaviors. I mean, the Tikamoon boss includes democracy in his offer. European elections and US elections, abstention at its highest for the European elections. What can we do? And polluted by our political situation, the dissolution and so on and so forth in France. What can we do concretely? What can the company do concretely to bring back democracy on the territories and playing game? Playing field is Europe. I mean, the initiative I was talking to you about, we were looking for a way with civilcracy at European level to federate as many people around the election. I mean, when you talk about the European elections, people doze off. The European deputies are difficult to come on board, and there's a lack of trust in this institution. We were in December. We hire active people. We thought we need to do something actively. How could we implement our cooperative method for this election? I thought if politicians cannot be brought on board as companies, we could use our current channels, our newsletters, our social network channels, the audiences we talk to now, and to promote in a playful way or stage them in a playful waive those elections. If there are 100 companies, all of us together telling to our audiences, let's go and vote. Yeah, including your customers. Yes, it was a mass market campaign. We created this campaign called Vote Anyway. We wanted to get from evangelism, democracy is good, you should go and vote. We wanted to have something a little bit funnier, more fun. We mobilized 350 companies throughout Europe, and 35 million people were impacted. Vote Anyway was the slogan. It's been translated in all the European languages. I mean, if you thought that you were going to vacuum clean your kitchen, I mean, go and vote now. Vote Anyway. It showed to the customers of the company that nobody was giving a lesson. Some committed companies promoted their values and encouraged you to vote. So 35,000 people were impacted this campaign. For the legislative elections, the abstention was a little bit less than the European. So we continued because we'd started a motion, and the companies who participated in the European election wanted to continue with the legislative one. And we started to co-create a testimony on the political civic commitment. I mean, there are lots of ways to promote democracy, so we continue that for the legislative ones. I mean, it's a long-term approach, so highly inspiring one. Professional organizations such as the MEDEF, for instance, do they open their doors and work hand in hand with you? Alliance, that's how I made Diak, who invited me to take part to this forum now. We worked with BILAB, the foundation with the big corp companies. The MEDEF, we knocked on their door without success, but I think it was the first time. I know that we had a lot of discussions because in this campaign, a lot of things happened upstream, and large groups who hesitated a lot. Now we've got very concrete data to give them. I mean, there was zero backlash. I mean, there's not one company who said that they didn't convey them the message or it backlashed on them. So we can continue, and we collected lots of data, lots of examples showing that there are other ways to promote democracy. That's just one of the ways doing it. I've seen the MEDEF president and his general director here in the room, so we're going to have a quick meeting just afterwards. Elon Musk is an entrepreneur, and he politically committed. Yes, he's not doing us much good. I mean, the lobby has always existed. I mean, the companies influence political policies, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. Everybody talks about the states, compare themselves to the states. There are things that should be borne in mind as to the limitations. I mean, the word partisanism of a company is a good posture. There are militant companies which can mobilize themselves easier. I imagine ADF, when you've got 180,000 employees, I mean, you've got to keep a certain stance and respect what is happening inside the company. But the States is a very different political picture. It's a way to fund the politics differently. So I don't think that is very good practice myself. So I don't know whether it's wise to compare what we can do. I mean, your credo is that the CSR integrates, invites democracy, for it not to be a dead angle. I mean, Have you got a couple of concrete examples so that tomorrow in our companies we can think back about it and think, okay, it'd be interesting for me to put that in my offer, that in my management? Make democracy sexy again. I mean, that's my motto for this year. I mean, it always surprises me that today we have values, and very often democracy is not part of one. I mean, it's strange because it's a basis that we should nurture, which is not stuck. I mean, that doesn't mean that the democracy we've got today shouldn't be changed. I mean, yes, advice to give. I mean, I invite you to download Little Advocacy. There are lots of companies doing great things, talking about misinformation, creating debate internally, creating different models of governance. I mean, there are lots of things that we can do around democracy. I think we got to make your own this space as a leader of a company in this audience. You're all for it. So what we've got to do is to go and drag those who are not keen on that. I like this punchline of democracy. No longer want to be the dead angle of CSR. CSR in the last 10 years was a bit like a hot potato that you would pass on to the next people. It's the same now with democracy and politics in a company. How can we build this democracy concretely? You'll go and see this, Dina. Yeah, 2 women who took the floor is not enough. I've got to, we're going to have to see the quotas changing as time goes. Thank you for your suggestion. It's much more than a testimony, actually. Let's continue with our preconceived ideas, and we're going to welcome Christian Plot.
Vous avez dit que des témoignages inspirants.
I told you that tonight was going to be inspiring. Christian has been exploring the world for over 20 years now, meeting people from different backgrounds. And I think that human contact and human interactions is crucial in your work, because this is thanks to these interactions that you're able to define action points and plans that are so important for our societies. Now, is it true that humanity has always adapted and been able to adapt? Yes and no. My answer won't come from the fact that I'm an explorer, but rather from the fact that I work at I'm the CEO of Human Adaptation Institute, where we try to understand adaptive behaviors. But to answer this question, we need to first define what adaptation is about, because it's a word that a lot of people use, but not many people understand can understand it connectively. We've been working on it and trying to study it for 20 years. Adaptation is about finding a balance in a given system, and when the system changes, you need to find this balance again. And the system changes for different reasons, either because there's a system around it that changes, or because someone decides of a change. And every time there's a step to go to this new, to transition towards this new balance. Now, if we look at humanity, there are different skills. Humanity at large scale, so the 8 billion of people that live on the planet. You have the social systems, but also you have mankind as individuals. If we look at humanity, we're 8 billion of us. So this means that we could say, yes, of course, we've always adapted because we're still there, we're still here, and we haven't disappeared yet. We'll get back to that. If we look at the society, that's different. It's more nuanced, because if you start looking at a society, the Maya society, for instance, the Maya society is a society that we've discovered cities and regions who had structures that were really structured, and they've fully disappeared in 25 years. So it's a society that hasn't been able to adapt, and we'll see what it means. Now, if we look at individuals, we all know, unfortunately, that not all individuals are able to adapt to change. And unfortunately, people who are suicidal or in a burnout situation are incapable of finding the necessary balance to find stable enough to be stable enough in a given system. Now the question is, what kind of pressure can a system resist, be it regardless of the skill we're talking about? I'd like to ask a question. How long does it take to adapt? That's a very interesting question, because we've often said that adaptation was a solution to a problem, but that's resilience. If you have a tragedy, you have resilience, and human beings have a reactive capacity. We've seen it with COVID. You have COVID, the first lockdown, and within 10 days, we were able to put into place something that we wanted to put in place for 20 years, which is the fact that people started to work remotely because there was a pressure and we needed to do something. We clearly had to react. That was survival mode. But did we adapt? Not at all. When COVID ended, we did not draw the lessons from it, and we're continuing as we used to before COVID. So if we look at two different things, the collapse of Rome and of the Maya civilization. In one case, you have a pressure that was going too fast. The Maya civilization that had been going around for decades and decades, they were struggling because they were using the forest resources too much, but it's fine. They were surviving. And then the conquistador from Spain not only brought war, but it also brought a disease, and that completely killed the Maya civilization within a few years. And this is smallpox that they brought. And it shows that adaptation takes time. And if you wait to be confronted to something that will put pressure on you too much, then you disappear. The collapse of Rome is kind of the opposite. It's a society that was doing great without any external pressure, quite the opposite. And they were capable of dominating all of the other systems. They did have pressure from Asterix and Obelix, didn't they? Of course. They didn't want to conquer Rome now, though. But what happened with Rome? They dominated everyone and everything, and they overexploited the different resources that were available, and they had too many regions, too many people to feed, and within 10 years they were not able to feed their army because they had no resources left. So the armies were against Rome and it collapsed. So this is over-exploitation. And if we look at humanity, mankind, we need to talk about over-adaptation. And that's interesting because we think that we're adapted to a system because we're doing well. The question is, do we have a balance with our system? And the issue is that if you use more resources than what the system can give you, then you don't have a balance. You're over-exploiting and over-adapting. And it's really nice for some time because you're able to get a lot of things, resources, you have money, you're doing great, etc. But oftentimes, the fall comes and it's really rough. And it's very brutal. Let me give an example. It was warm today, Jean-Pierre de Tartre. We're in a 50-degree truck. I don't know if you've tried it. The experimentation of living in a 52-degree atmosphere to do physical and mental exercise, and it was an incredible experience. And this was clearly imbalance, to go back to the word that you've used. We were in an imbalanced situation. So how does adaptation work? This is something that we've been working on for over 20 years. We've tried to outline the adaptative mechanics. Does each situation lead to a different type of adaptation, or is there an adaptation model? There is an adaptation model which we've been able to model. Now we're able to explain adaptation and how it works. There are different elements that come into play. When someone says you need to change, it's never easy for a human being because it calls upon fundamental elements such as emotions. So this adaptation model has 12 inputs for it to work. I'm not going to go over everything, especially because I wrote a book about it, so I'm not going to sum it up. But there are different necessary steps. The first one is that cognitively, a human being cannot make the decision to change its behavior unless it's been submitted to emotion, to some sort of emotional experience. Why do I talk about it? Well, because most of the time we don't feel the emotions of the future. So that's why it's so difficult to adapt to climate change. We were starting to feel it with floods, etc., etc. But you need that. And you also, secondly, you need to accept the situation. You need to say, okay, I agree with what's happening, and therefore I can make decisions based on that. Because unless you've accepted the situation, then you'll continue to make decisions opposite to your interests and your needs. This is probably the hardest part to accept for us as a civilization, that need to change everything right away to solve climate and environmental issues, which I understand because it feels like there's urgency. But believing that a human being can change in a minute or a day is absolutely impossible, cognitively speaking. That's fascinating. To conclude, we've created this climate room, so you understand in your own flesh the reality of a potential future. It's incredible. And to make sure that we generate action. Unfortunately, we won't be there tomorrow. But the good news is that this climate room is a mobile climate room. You can go anywhere. If you have a company, if you have an executive committee, come and do an executive committee in enhanced reality, in this future reality. If you are a politician, make your room, make your team come. The only detail is that right now, this capacity that we have to offer this experience is 70% of conversion rate for decision making after it. It's unprecedented. Do it. Talk about it around you, because this is a climate room that is unique, that generates decision making is something that no one wanted to fund initially. Wow. Well, for a company, how can companies sustain the cost of adaptation? This is a question that we ask ourselves on a daily basis in a company's governance. It's going to cost a lot of money. Well, not necessarily. Because again, adaptation is about finding one's balance. It's not only about reacting. And this is the mistake that we've been making for the past 30 or 40 years. We've been opposing adaptation and mitigation. If we want to reduce our impact, we must change behaviors. And if we want to change behavior, we need to adapt. So we have a choice now, and it's a freedom that we have. This is extraordinary. We can make the decision of our adaptation model as citizens, as politicians. We can freely decide what we want to do in order to ensure a possible future. In 20 years' time, it will no longer be about adaptation. It will be an overreaction in a disorderly manner on something that was imposed upon us, and we won't have the choice, we won't have the freedom, and we won't have the time. The adaptation is clearly related to freedom of choice. This freedom is the freedom that we still have today, each and every one of us, to decide not that we won't have floods in the future or that it won't be hot. That's too late. We need to accept that there will be climate change or climate and global warming. And this is only about heat, because we could talk about the different inputs. But the question is, will we have 2 days per year with 50 degrees, or will we have 2 months per year? How many countries have reached the 50-degree limit? There are 5 countries that have reached, so Mexico, Pakistan, India, and Saudi Arabia. These are the 4 countries in the world that have exceeded 50 degrees Celsius in urban settings. And in 3 cases, it was above 35 TW degrees, which is the deadly temperature for a human being within 6 hours. So, can you give us one good news from the encounters that you've made of remote peoples that you've met?
I can't remember which one adapted. There's this, we've got to change the way we look at things. I mean, we can't compare ourselves. You can't say, let's just see how the Maori live in the tropical forest. It's not possible. There are hundreds of them. We are millions. We can't reproduce this. The only thing that we can reproduce, which is crucial amongst those populations, is that they used their resources only based on what they could these resources could bring them. When we've got a company, a policy, or a country, we've got to identify the resource that we have that gives us the possibility to work emotionally and socially in a normal daily condition. If we work at this, we are in something which is aberrant. I mean, if we work this out, I mean, the only question that we've got to ask ourselves to help somebody to adapt is not just change. That's not possible. Is to look at which are the emotional entrants which will help this person to overcome a situation. And these emotional entrants are the basis of everything. So we will want to impose the, if you want to impose the idea of a change to somebody, you won't have any result. If you want to find out what links links this person to his health, his family, its a personal longing for the future, you get a result. And one last point, we're going to stop after that. You cannot adapt if you don't believe fundamentally to the future that you're going to create. The adaptative hope is the key for the human being to change, because our brain is a social system. Social system works. The effort that I make has got to be rewarded by something which is positive enough for me to get involved in that. That's human. So if you want the human being to adapt and to change, you have to give it some hope.
Merci. Mesdames, Messieurs, chers amis, nous arrivons
Dear friends, we're getting to the end of this plenary session that we're going to play in two ways, Quentin and Dominique, to finalize the work of art. What's going to happen? Oh, we brought his set of tools. Quentin. No, I don't need a hammer.
Ah, elle revient à chaque fois. D'accord, très bien. Voilà. Vous pouvez prendre des micros. Hein.
You can take microphones.
Moi, franchement, rien que le texte et l'écriture, c'est sympa.
Just the text and the writing for me, that's enough.
Quentin, s'il vous plaît.
Can we turn Quentin's microphone on, please?
Ouais, le mien, il marche pas. Si, ça marche, ça marche?
Non, on ne vous entend pas, Quentin.
Quentin, we can't hear you.
Je parle.
Oui, voilà.
Ah, il s'est passé quelque chose déjà.
Something happened actually compared with earlier on. I mean, it was pleasant, black and white poem on a board, and that was it. No, with Bachelard, you will take away from this evening, this language and these conversations are elements which will float in your memory. And and then you've got the memory playing its work, and turning the mirror back. I mean, we've got these dancing signs, the trembling handwriting, which remain visible when you look at it. The idea also is that there's not one truth, but truth is a sum total of segments, of fragments. And the second step of the use of this mirror for the masterpiece to be true as to what it wants to express is that we've got to break the mirror. But there's this resilience principle in the mirror, is that it's going to stay as one, a fractured unit, but a unit nonetheless, which will keep the history, its experience based on your suggestions and your words, which will be a trace of this moment, which is already changing, which is disappearing from your memory, which will keep all this sedimentation of the end, which will free some light and colors. Is going to last for a quarter of a half a second. Will I do it? No. The chairman of the Réseau Alliance now will do it.
C'est 7 ans de bonheur ou 7 ans de malheur?
7 years of happiness, or
Chez nous, ça va être 7 ans de bonheur et de félicité.
7 years of
Il arrive que ça marche pas du premier coup.
happiness and plenitude. So sometimes it doesn't work, but sometimes can you hold my hand? I'll hold your hand. Try again. Here we go. This is what happens, and which will stay a kind of snow or
an
illustration of trembling senses.
Avec
work of Vinci Folium, the important partners also. You brought art into this thing.
Ah, très bien. Elle sera exposée au cocktail. Vous pourrez
It will be visible
en ouverture, je vous avais annoncé
during the cocktail. When do you want the support of? I told you that 10 trophies were going to be handed over, 30th edition, and we thought that for these 10 laureates, and that's when we're going to get the parity. Beyond just giving them a trophy, it would be interesting to hear them on the 5th preconceived idea that you suggested. So we will welcome them in a few minutes, and they're going to give you an advocacy, the preconceived idea.
We
choose the green hashing remaining discreet as to our virtuous practices, yes or no. Round of applause for the 10 laureates of the 2024 edition of the World Forum for
Bienvenue à vous.
Responsible Economy.
Des entrepreneurs engagés, toute taille
entrepreneurs, committed ones, various size of their company, and you've got this photo call which is at in the lobby, and you're going to be able to take group photos. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the duty to communicate on what we do well to change the world to the good. If we don't do that, we'll leave Romani for inaction. I'm convinced that the communication of our actions welcomes the effort of those who commit to our organization, and I thank Lemon Active with me every day. I'm convinced that this communication takes our stakeholders to commit to this action. I've got the conviction that this communication forces us to continue with our trajectory. This communication is the only one that will allow us to build up new stories together. An example associated with our work, an eco-design website communicating on our commitment in a plain way and using half the energy. At Lemon Active, we value the action of our collaborators and that of our clients, offering them those solutions for their new narrative. So let's commit to the laureates of the trophies and communicate in a committed way, but without fuss.
On enchaîne, les amis. Allez-y.
J'avais besoin d'un micro juste.
I needed a microphone. Good evening all. We reduce with ClearTech the waste, packaging waste, cardboard and plastic that I got in the e-commerce that you all got and that you threw away in the bin. We support the companies in this change, in this transformation to stop creating automatically this type of waste. We give them reusable boxes from reconditioned textile. It avoids 83% of cardboard compared to a unique cardboard box. I would like to thank Baptiste, my co-founder, and my collaborators for this nice collaboration together. We've revalued 4.5 tons of textile that way and avoided 5 tons of packaging waste with 30 clients. We're testing corporate accounts, and we're going through this transformation and delighted to have recognition for that.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Caroline Lantec, je
Caroline, you don't think I'm terrible at math, and I'm convinced that 1 + 1 equals at least 3, otherwise it's pointless to take action. CTO, which is the entrepreneurship structure that I represent here with my team, is a structure that is a mediation and facilitation agency to live together and to take action in our regions. This is ambition, and to work on this purpose, on this meaning, it means that we need to target shared useful results with all stakeholders, with our 170 colleagues, with our governance, and with our clients. But to do that, what seems important to us is to continue thinking that 1 + 1 equals 3, which means talk about cooperation. And for us, cooperation is about stopping working for people or for things, and stopping to hurt ourselves when working, but rather to work for the better with efficiency and to be able to assess our performance. We need to trust on collective intelligence. We need to be aligned. We need to work hand in hand, but also not only one after one another, but rather to produce together within ecosystems where we value collective objectives. It's trusting one another. It's tapping into everyone's experience. And you wanted us to conclude on something that goes boom. And the question of cooperation is not so much about suffering alone, but rather daring to act together with 3 players. And I'd like to suggest we do it together, which means that we need to talk about it. We need to talk about it, and we need to do it together.
Bonjour à tous.
Hello everyone, I'd like to explain to you how you can manage to produce by 4 times the water sampling in an industry that consumes a lot of water, more than 1 million of cubic meters per year. What did we do at the Gondarden cardboard manufacturing plant? We make cardboard, and to make it we need paper, and we use recycled paper and cardboard. And to do that, we have paper machines that are extraordinary machines where we redilute the already used paper within 99% of water, and then we press it, we dry it, and we need decarbonized energy as well. But we use water, and usually this water, when we start, we take it from, as you can see here, on the De Fossé Canal. And all of the paper mills are treating but also filtering this water, and then we reject it. And we saved water in 2 steps. It started in 1992. We were amongst the first cardboard plants in France to use a full recycled, closed loop. We are almost a water treatment plant in a way. But also, and above all, the project that we've inaugurated 2 months ago is that we reuse rainwater for over 17 hectares, and on roofs, but also on roads, and we reduce our water consumption even more. So 150,000 liters of water. So we use 2.5 liters of water to make as much cardboard as another company that would use 10. So we were considered an example by the Water Management Agency. We're really proud of it. Good evening. For our innovation for the reuse of structural buildings, we were ahead of regulation in terms of insurance and reuse of wood and metal roof structures. It's about human adventure and common sense. When we met people, we were able to get the approval from an architect, study firm, and an audit firm. We got the right label to guarantee reused building, and therefore we forced the regulation to change based on this innovation.
De l'audace,
being bold, challenging one another, creativity and humility. These are some of the ingredients that can help move the lines. GeoNord is acting to preserve soils and water. We no longer want to produce reports that go unread. We want a regulation for the labor conditions to be more fulfilling. We have team meetings where we have peer exchanges, where we do things rigorously, but not necessarily we don't take ourselves too seriously. We have a business model for impacting and impactful studies that are tailor-made to our regions, daring to stray from the path and to stay away from a production-oriented economy to move towards something that is more human-centric. I'd like to thank the Club Noé Réseau Alliance and Diane, who was alongside us for this adventure.
Apparemment, celui-là marche pas.
I think this mic's not working. Hi, everyone. Jean-Laurent Gentil, Regional Director of Enedis for the Nord-Pas-de-Calais region. Enedis is the operator and distributor for electricity. And our mission, for those of you who don't know us, is to bring electricity to your homes everywhere. Everywhere, anytime, in your homes, in your companies. Plugging in your renewable projects, but also intervening, just like we saw this weekend, in order to solve power outages when there's a storm. And as we know, there are more and more storms because of climate change. To go back to the preconceived idea of the day, should we hush our efforts? No, we've decided not to. Why? Well, because we firmly believe that in the current context, climate urgency makes it unacceptable, the fact of not acting or not speaking out. For instance, we've decided to be mobilized on different actions and initiatives, including the one that I'd like to share with you today. We are mobilized to decarbonize all of the work sites that we have. What does it mean? Well, it means reducing our emissions, electrifying our vehicles, our work vehicles, mobilizing our partner ecosystem, including Kilo 2 that we work with. These are actions that are not always perfect, but at least they're honest, measurable in terms of impact, and they generate new collaborations. We started with a pilot project, and then 5 work sites, and this year 700 work sites at national scale, small ones beyond the region that are rolled out and deployed, and that will continue to be deployed over the next few years. Enedis has become a mission company. We believe that the fear of greenwashing or skepticism shouldn't hinder our action. We want to share our efforts, learn from our mistakes, and make sure that other players tag along in this movement, because we do believe that at our scale, by uniting forces with our partners, we can initiate collaborations that can have an impact and change the game. Thank you for this prize, because it strengthens our personal belief that only thanks to transparency and collaboration will we be able to change our future.
Bonsoir, je m'appelle Guillaume Jourdain. Et comme le personnage homonyme créé par Molière sans le savoir, nous, chez Croque-la-Vie, on faisait de la RSE sans le savoir, plutôt sans
CSR without knowing it, or rather without saying it.
On a passé les premières années de notre existence
when we were created, we spent the first few years of our existence trying to convince our clients of the quality of our products and that we could support them, which is why every day we're able to supply organic food to 500 crashes every day. 2 years ago, we thought, well, we're really happy with what we're doing, but are we actually able to assess what we're doing? And at that point, we appointed Charlotte, and thank you to her, to be CSR manager, and we took stock of what we've been doing. We supported 35 hectares of farming soil in organic farming practices. Laurent was able to create 3 poultry houses, additional ones. We also stopped night shifts for our delivery people, and beyond food delivery for schools and creches, we also raised raised awareness amongst family and crèche staff to sustainable food, not only for the planet, but also for us. And we've also decided to change our model, and we realized that everything we've been doing was incredible, and we're really happy now that we'll be able to value this through the Réseau Alliance. Because this also means more trusting and having self-confidence, and this is what gives us the desire to go above and beyond. Thank you.
Alors, notre mission chez le Fogon, depuis le début, c'est de rendre la consigne accessible à tous.
Our mission is to making milk available to everyone, so that the milkman, is now become something extended. Now 24,000 containers that were reused, 9,000 tons of CO2 that were avoided, and this wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for 320 employees in France. Of course, we're mission native, and this is part of the company's DNA from the beginning, but we want to go to step up because we believe that it's important to raise awareness amongst the employees, not only to climate change, but also to small daily actions that can be implemented. And from the beginning, we've decided to hire someone, Aurore, who's with us today, to help us in our CSR actions, our impactful actions, but also to raise awareness to everyone working within Le Fourgon to climate frisk, or other actions such as improving mobility and improving food consumption. So I'd like to encourage you to do the same thing, to make sure that your employees also share the same things, be it small actions or large, because only if we act together we'll be able to succeed this environmental transition.
CSRD, reporting EFG, report on sustainability, audit, words which are good on which mean a lot of Excel spreadsheets, what energy lost in IT network, what trace will we leave of this, the dream of a society where action overcomes fiction. I dream of a society where action goes before communication. I dream of a society of the Iron Age, F-A-R-E. I dream of a society where simplicity is the greatest sophistication, where nature doesn't rhyme with a future, but is experienced in the present. I know societies with a concrete CSR approach. These companies are here in front of your very eyes, full of wishes. They will for sure be able to change society. With BCT, we are specialists in biodiversity, in vegetation, human, and we make nature the best collaborator. We keep our feet on the ground and our head in the beehives. I mean, this is a picture taken last week under the rain. This world we build together with our clients, our partners, and BCT au top present here. Thank you to the BCT for their support to go from the full screen to full nature. We all actors. Trophy of a responsible economy. Diloane, thank you for your commitment. I will call Gunnar Pourel, who's going to be the chairman of the agreement committee, because you've got an application and a pitch to do. There's a true approach to end up to getting those trophies. And Benoit chairing this committee of approval. So I'm going to ask the partners, the trophy partners, to go through the trophy table, and then distribute the trophies, and then there's going to be the audience favorite trophy. 30th edition, what you talked about your commitment, your collaborators, your customers, your stakeholders. We've heard a very strong commitment on the territory from each and every one of you. So let's take the trophy and let's move on fast, please. There's only one that got handed over. So the partners of Réseau Alliance and distributing their trophies, great.
Sont beaux ces trophées.
Nice trophies they are. And congratulations and round of applause from the audience to congratulate these laureates of the trophy.
Alors j'ai demandé aussi à nos grands témoins qu'on a entendus
responsible economy,
de bien vouloir nous rejoindre pour la photo de famille. Donc,
speakers, can you please come and join us on the stage? Sylvain, Christian, Chloé, all of them, come and join us for the group picture. And there's also the trophy of the public's favorite, and it's the laureate with the greatest number of likes, and that's BCT Sylvain Bovard, who will receive this trophy of public's favorite.
Donnez vos consignes.
Alors, la consigne, c'est que je vais me placer au niveau de la caméra qui entre ici.
Celle-là, là.
Donc, vous aurez juste à me regarder avec un grand sourire. Et voilà, et j'allais te demander si toi tu veux.
Ah, oh bah ouais, tiens, pourquoi pas. À côté d'un chauve. Hein, voilà, alors la photo. Et on se lève tous pour les applaudir. Merci beaucoup en tout cas pour votre présence.
Stand up, please, and round of applause for all the laureates, and thank you for being here. I mean, your presence is very useful.
Ça marche pas, attendez, on le refait. Attends, qu'est-ce qui te manque là?
Je suis pas assez grand.
Ah, tu veux que je te fasse la courte ou tu veux une chaise Non, Nicolas va te donner sa chaise si tu veux. Non.
À ce moment-là, je vais demander à tous les lauréats et tous les parrains, etc., de vous rapprocher un maximum. On va faire quelque chose de...
Et certains se mettent derrière.
Voilà, on va profiter de l'estrade qui est juste là. Merci beaucoup.
Philippe Beauchamp est avec nous. J'ai vu également Frédéric Motte, président de la mission Rêve 3. Philippe Beauchamp, vice-président de la région en charge du développement économique. Votre présence est aussi précieuse et importante. Ah ouais, là, c'est bien, là, c'est pas mal. Vous n'oublierez pas tout à l'heure, mesdames, messieurs, d'aller devant le photocall qui est à l'entrée. Et il est à l'écran.
Don't forget about the photocall.
30 ans de pratique au service de la performance économique, environnementale et sociale. Allez, c'est bon? Ah ouais, mais voilà.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Merci beaucoup, on vous souhaite une très belle soirée. Le Works Forum continue demain. On vous attend dès 9h avec des tas d'événements et des tas de témoignages. Bonne soirée à tous.